Jamaican chocolate is truly incredible. This isn't your typical chocolate, it's something much more special. It's the key ingredient in a very delicious and unique hot drink that I grew up on. This is just pure nostalgia. Hey, I'm Nick, and today I'm going to take you through the entire process of making Jamaican chocolate, from harvesting the cacao pods to the final sticks, and how to transform this into a mug of rich, creamy deliciousness. I'll get a little bit into the background of Jamaican cocoa to figure out why it's so good. So, let's get right into it. The scientific name of cacao literally means food of the gods. These evergreen trees are native to tropical Central and South America, but they grow exceptionally well in Jamaica. They produce oval pods that have seeds that are covered in edible pulp. I actually love the taste, mostly sweet with a custardy fruity tart aftertaste. Growing up, I remember my grandmother making chocolate. Her property had a lot of cacao trees, most of which are still around today. Cacao is the name used to describe the plant in its raw or processed state. Cacao trees are cacao pods.
With this, I come off a chunk. I see many young ones. See blossom them and the young ones. Them be right down to here. You have blossom right down to the almost the root. Yeah.
Cocoa is only used after some amount of processing has been done. Jamaicans, however, call everything cocoa regardless of its state. Cocoa was brought to Jamaica by the Spanish in the 16th century, so we actually have a long history with this plant. Despite having some of the best flavored cocoa, Jamaica still never developed a proper chocolate industry. Cocoa is broadly divided into two categories. Bulk cocoa are varieties that are grown for higher productivity and bean size rather than flavor. Fine flavor cocoa varieties might have smaller seeds, but they usually yield chocolate that has much more complex flavor. Varieties are only part of it though, because a big part of what determines great flavored chocolate is how the plants are cared for as well as how they are harvested and processed. Jamaica is one of 8 countries that exclusively produce fine flavored cocoa. Despite all that, cocoa for a long time was more of a cottage industry, one that my grandmother was a part of. She made and sold cocoa sticks for much of her life. The Jamaican cocoa industry was at its height in the 1980s, but today we only produce and export a fraction of that. There's a couple reasons for that, with one of the biggest being poor government policy decisions as well as changes with regulations and regulatory bodies. Aging farmers and poor prices did not help either, but over-regulating an industry that's already hard to get into forced farmers into more profitable crops.
Yeah, they no good. They ain't grow.
Yeah, some kind of growth.
They wanna grow already.
Yeah.
Yeah, they start grow.
As you can see, some cocoa will start to sprout in the pods. The quality of the sprouted beans won't be as good, so we don't use them. After getting the seeds out the cocoa pods, the next steps are essential for developing good flavor in any chocolate. Cocoa seeds need to go through fermentation, helped along by the sugars in the pulp. Fermenting changes the flavor of the cocoa, getting rid of a lot of the harsh or unpleasant flavors. Fermentation can take anywhere from 3 to 7 days. Just cover and leave them somewhere relatively warm. These have been fermenting for close to a week in my oven. Usually fermenting produces a fair amount of liquid, but these beans did not have a lot of pulp, so this is more of a dry fermentation. The older cocoa pods get, the less pulp they have, and some of these were on the older side. These have a really sweet, satisfying, fragrant vinegary scent. After fermenting, I sun-dried these for about a week. Sun-drying reduces the water content of the cocoa beans and makes the skin much easier to remove. The next step is to roast the beans. This develops the flavor of the chocolate and makes removing the shells from the cocoa beans very easy. I'm using a pot on high heat like my grandmother used to do. I'm making sure the beans are always moving for a nice even roast. Using the oven is also an option. It takes much longer, but it's a more hands-off process. Yup, some of them will pop when roasting. These are ready when the shell of the cocoa bean can be easily removed. This is something that's very nostalgic. I remember helping my grandmother shell cocoa beans. I love the scent of the roasted beans, so I always find it super satisfying. The shell cocoa beans are now called cocoa nibs or cacao nibs. You might be used to seeing these broken up, usually as a product of the shelling or winnowing process. Not all the beans are good, some are not roasted properly and some are just plain bad. Both are hard to shell, so I'm saving them for a second roast. The nibs might have different colors for a variety of reasons, like the health of the tree or disease, but the main one is usually variety. Different cocoa varieties produces beans with a wide range of colors. The shell of the beans have a lot of uses. They make great compost material or mulch. I have never tried it, but I hear they also make a delicious tea that has a light chocolate flavor. I can tell that a lot of these beans are bad already, but I'm giving it a second roast, then sort out the good ones. That is it. Very few things are as satisfying as the smell and feel of freshly roasted cocoa beans. Time to make some Jamaican chocolate. This is optional, but adding cinnamon sticks is common in a lot of recipes. It's the same with nutmeg. I'm using freshly grated nutmeg. I'm keeping these flavors really subtle. Next, put everything into a blender. My blender is pretty powerful, so I don't have to worry about any stalling. My grandmother did not have a blender though, so what did she use? This is a wooden mortar and pestle. My grandmother used to use this to make not only chocolate, but she also used it to grind coffee. This mortar is really old, spanning at least 3 generations. The mortar is really ancient, but this pestle has been changed multiple times. It's made by strategically burning out the trunk of a hardwood tree and scooping out the charred bits until you get it hollowed out. Even now, it still smells like chocolate. This one tool was not only a large part of authentic Jamaican cuisine, but it also represented continuity and the passing down of heritage across generations. I love using a mortar and pestle, but it's extremely labor intensive and takes a long time, so I'm going to go with something a bit quicker and a bit more modern. My blender is a beast, but it can still get too full, so I'm just going to blend half of this at a time. Blend it long enough and it will start to liquefy. It's important to have the right amount for a proper blend. This is close to what it would look like if I use a mortar, but I'm going to blend this a lot smoother. That smells so good. Next, I'm going to blend the other half. right amount for a proper blend, so I'm simply adding back some of the blended chocolate to get the volume up. And that was the hardest part, and that's now done. I'm making Jamaican chocolate, which is used almost exclusively to make chocolate tea. If I was making proper ready to eat chocolate bars, this would be a much longer process, despite what a lot of YouTubers would have you believe. Proper chocolate bars involve multiple steps, with some lasting many hours or days. I would have to break the nibs and give them a more controlled roast, add additional cocoa butter and sugar, put it through a process called conching, where it's mixed or kneaded for several hours to several days, add milk solids for milk chocolate, and finally tempering, where you heat and cool the chocolate to achieve the perfect texture, glossy finish, and that satisfying snap. Jamaican chocolate is comparatively easier. The final step is molding the chocolate. Before that, I need to chill it down. Chocolate is temperature sensitive and melts from just a little bit of friction. I want chocolate sticks like my grandmother used to make. Using my hand to mold them is a no-no. Body heat and friction makes getting this molded almost impossible. My grandmother used her hands with the aid of banana leaves to shape her chocolate. Those were some very attractive chocolate sticks. Thanks to Hurricane Beryl, that's not an option for me. A bit of cling wrap will have to do the trick. I'm using my hand to roughly shape the sticks first. Then wrap it in the cling wrap, making sure to keep it tight. Next, do a little bit of twisting to get a mostly uniform shape. Clearly, I'm not the artisan my grandmother was, because these are not as sexy. I would love to have had these neat, but that still won't change the taste. I'm going to let these sit for a day to get solid before I remove the cling wrap. These get a lot more solid the longer they sit. The flavor also matures and get a lot more complex. But yup, there you have it. Now, let's make something delicious. Many Jamaicans have extremely fond memories of chocolate tea on Sunday mornings, rich, deep chocolate taste, spicy aromas, and of course the help on the top. After making or buying the chocolate, the rest is fairly simple. Grate one of the chocolate sticks. It will melt if you place it in any heat, but I've noticed that grating it actually makes a much smoother chocolate tea. I'm going to make 3 cups of chocolate tea. I need 2 cups of water and 1 cup of whole milk. You could always play around with the ratios, but this works really well for me. 2 cinnamon sticks for some brighter cinnamon flavor. Fresh cinnamon leaves are actually what's preferred though. A bit of freshly grated nutmeg for some fresher nutmeg flavors. This is about 2 tablespoons of vanilla. You can always adjust to suit your taste. Next, add the grated chocolate. That's about 1 cup. Finally, add salt to taste. This is half a teaspoon. Next, I'm just boiling gently until the flavors come together, maybe around another 10 minutes. I like to sweeten chocolate tea with condensed milk. It not only sweetens, but it also gives the chocolate tea some additional richness. The intense smell of this is crazy. You get really powerful chocolate flavor with some delicious roasted aromas. If you have never had Jamaican chocolate tea, I don't think anything can prepare you for how good this is. Enamel mugs are not as common now as in my grandmother's time, but I had to find one for this video. That's the most delicious, most comforting cup of anything you will ever have. That oil on the top of the chocolate is actually cocoa butter. Cooling the chocolate will make it solid. That cocoa butter is responsible for a lot of the richness and intense flavor you don't get from a regular cup of cocoa. This video took a lot of time to put together and I could not do it without the help of my brothers, so a big shout out to them. This was great. Drop a like if you enjoyed the content and I will catch you in the next one.